Everyone thought Grandma Madeline was poor. Her house was old and small. Her clothes were faded. She saved rainwater in buckets and grew her own vegetables. Penny Pincher Maddie, her grandchildren called her behind her back. Tyler, Zoe, and Lucas hated visiting her every Sunday. They felt embarrassed when their friends saw them going into that dump at the end of Maple Street. But what the grandchildren didn't know was that their grandmother had a secret. A big secret. Every night after they left, she would open an old notebook and carefully write numbers inside. Sometimes she would look at them with a twinkle in her eye and a mysterious smile. For years, Madeline had been planning something that would change her grandchildren's lives forever. And on her 83rd birthday, when she handed them 3 colored envelopes, each containing a single key, that's when everything they thought they knew about their poor grandmother began to unravel. Madeline Winters's house stood at the very end of Maple Street, where the paved road turned to gravel. The small wooden home had been painted white once, but now the color was faded to a soft gray. Patches of paint peeled away like old scabs, showing the weathered wood underneath. "Do we have to go?" Zoe asked, slumping in the back seat of the Ruth family car. At 15, she had better things to do with her Sunday than visit her grandmother's dumpy house. "Yes, we have to go," Mom answered firmly. "Grandma Madeline loves seeing you kids," 17-year-old Tyler groaned. "Jack invited me to his house today. His family just got a new pool. You can swim next weekend," Dad said, turning onto Maple Street. 12-year-old Lucas pressed his face against the window. "What if someone from school sees us going in there?" The car pulled into the gravel driveway that ran alongside Madeline's garden. Mismatched buckets caught rainwater from the leaky gutters. The vegetable garden was the only tidy part of the property, with neat rows of tomatoes, beans, and carrots. "Remember to be polite," Mom warned as they climbed out of the car. "Grandma does her best." The porch steps creaked under their feet. Before they could knock, the door swung open. There stood Madeline Winters, 82 years old, her silver hair pulled back in a simple bun. She wore a faded blue dress with tiny yellow flowers that the grandchildren had seen dozens of times before. "My darlings!" Madeline's face lit up. She stretched out her arms, and the children dutifully gave her hugs. Inside, the house smelled like lemon cleaner and something baking in the oven. The furniture was old-fashioned, a sagging couch with a crocheted blanket draped over it, wooden chairs with worn cushions, and a television that might have been new 20 years ago. "I made cookies," Madeline said, leading them to the kitchen, "and lemonade with mint from my garden." The kitchen was spotless, but dated. Madeline refused to replace anything that still worked. The refrigerator hummed loudly, and the stove had actual knobs instead of a digital display. Tyler checked his phone while Madeline poured lemonade into mismatched glasses. "No signal," he muttered. "There's a sweet spot by the window," Madeline said with a wink. "But maybe we could just talk instead." Zoe picked at a cookie. "These are actually good, Grandma." "Thank you, dear. Now tell me what's new with you. How is school?" For the next hour, the children answered their grandmother's questions about classes, friends, and activities. Mom and Dad went to the hardware store, leaving the kids with Grandma as they did every Sunday. "I'm thinking about medical school," Tyler said, when Madeline asked about his future plans. Madeline's eyes sparkled. "A doctor! That takes dedication." "And money," Tyler added, "like tons of it." Madeline nodded thoughtfully, then got up and pulled a notebook from a drawer. She wrote something down before returning to the table. "What's that?" Lucas asked. "Just some notes, dear." "What about you, Zoe? Still enjoying your art classes?" "Yeah, my teacher says I have talent," Zoe shrugged. but art supplies are so expensive. Again, Madeline made a note in her book. Later, while their parents chatted with Grandma in the living room, the kids explored the backyard. Penny Pincher Maddie strikes again, Tyler said, pointing to a clothesline with sheets flapping in the breeze. Who doesn't own a dryer in this century? Did you see her counting coins from that jar? Lucas asked. I bet that's her life savings. So sad, Zoe agreed. Why doesn't she just use a bank like normal people? When it was time to leave, the Piedi Ifi children found Madeline in her bedroom. She was carefully writing in her notebook again, a jar of coins on her bedside table. She quickly closed the book when she noticed them. Grandma, why don't you just use a bank app? Tyler asked, rolling his eyes. Madeline simply smiled and tucked the notebook away. Some things are better done the old way, dear. On the drive home, the children complained about the visit. Addie from my class biked past while we were there, Lucas said miserably. Now everyone will know where we go on Sundays. At least we only have to go once a week, Zoe said. None of them noticed the thoughtful expression on their mother's face as she listened to their complaints. None of them understood why she and Dad exchanged knowing glances. And none of them saw their grandmother that evening, sitting alone at her kitchen table with her notebook open, planning something that would change their lives forever. 2 weeks passed. The air grew warmer as spring inched towards summer. In the winter's family group chat, Mom reminded everyone about Grandma Madeline's birthday on Saturday. Do we have to get her something? Zoe texted back. It's not like she needs more stuff in that tiny house. Just make her a card, Mom replied. We'll take care of the gift. On Saturday morning, the family piled into the car once again. This time, they carried a small chocolate cake from the grocery store, a bouquet of daisies, and 3 handmade cards. I heard Penny Pincher Maddie has been asking the neighbors for empty jars again, Tyler said as they drove. Probably for more. Coin collecting. Don't call her that, Dad said sharply. Your grandmother deserves respect. When they arrived, they found Madeline on her porch, wearing her Sunday dress, the lavender one with white trim that she saved for special occasions. Her silver hair was arranged in soft waves instead of her usual practical bun. Happy birthday, Mom, Dad said, hugging her gently. 83 years young, she replied with a laugh. Come in, come in. I've made lemonade. Inside, the grandchildren were surprised to see the dining table set with Madeline's good china, the set she kept in a cabinet and rarely used. A vase of fresh wildflowers stood in the center of the table. Is someone else coming? Lucas whispered to Mom. No, just us, she answered. Grandma wanted to make today special. After lunch and cake, Madeline thanked everyone for their cards. Her eyes grew misty as she read each one. I have something for you 3, she said, looking at her grandchildren. Tyres Theodorus that she blinked in surprise. But Grandma, it's your birthday. Madeline rose slowly from her chair and disappeared into her bedroom. When she returned, she carried 3 envelopes, each a different color, blue, green, and yellow. Tyler, the blue one is for you, she said. Zoe, green for you, and Lucas, yellow for you. The siblings exchanged confused glances. With hesitant hands, they accepted the envelopes. Can we open them? Lucas asked. Madeline nodded, her eyes twinkling. Inside, each envelope was a handwritten letter and a small brass key. The letters were similar but personalized for each child. Tyler read his aloud. My dear Tyler, you are standing at the beginning of an important journey. This key will unlock something precious, but only at the right time. Please come to first, National Bank tomorrow at 10:15 a.m. sharp. All will be explained. Bring only this key and an open heart. With love, Grandma. Mine says almost the same thing, Zoe said, looking up from her letter. What's this about, Grandma? Lucas asked, turning his key over in his hand. Madeline smiled mysteriously. You'll see tomorrow. Just promise me you'll all be there. Mom. Dad? Tyler said. Are you coming too? Their parents exchanged a look. No, Mom said. This is between you and your grandmother. Later, as they drove home, the siblings speculated wildly. Maybe she's giving us her coin collection, Lucas suggested. Split 3 ways? Tyler scoffed. That's like $20 each. It has to be something small, Zoe reasoned. The key is tiny. Probably a safe deposit box, Tyler said. But what could Grandma possibly have that's worth keeping in a bank? That night, the children could hardly sleep, their minds racing with possibilities. Meanwhile, back in her quiet house, Madeline. Winters prepared for bed with a peaceful smile. From her dresser drawer, she removed an old photograph, a picture of herself as a young woman, standing proudly in front of a building. She touched the faces of the people gathered around her in the photograph, then set it on her nightstand. Next, she took out her notebook and made a few final entries. The book was nearly full now, pages covered with neat rows of numbers and names spanning decades. She closed it with a sense of completion. Madeline looked around her simple bedroom. The faded curtains, the worn quilt, the ancient alarm clock. She had lived in this house for 52 years. It had sheltered her through joy and sorrow, through plenty and want. Its simplicity had been her choice all along. Tomorrow, her grandchildren would begin to understand. Tomorrow, the seeds she had planted so carefully would finally bear fruit. She knelt by her bed to say her prayers, thanking God for her many blessings, for her family, for the work of her hands, for the life she had been privileged to live. Let them see beyond the surface, she whispered. Let them understand what truly matters. As she climbed into bed, a sense of anticipation filled her heart. After all these years of patient waiting, the moment had nearly arrived. Across town, her grandchildren tossed and turned, their dreams filled with mysterious keys and hidden treasures, having no idea that their lives were about to change forever. Zerber. Next morning dawned bright and clear. Mom dropped the 3 siblings off in front of First National Bank at 9:50 a.m. Call me when you're finished, she said. And remember, open minds and hearts. Tyler led the way up the stone steps of the imposing building. It was the oldest bank in town, with tall columns and heavy wooden doors. None of the children had ever been inside before. This is weird, Zoe whispered as they entered the grand lobby. Why would Grandma send us here? The floor was polished marble. Chandeliers hung from a ceiling 2 stories high. Men and women in business suits moved purposefully across the lobby. Lucas clutched his yellow envelope tightly. I feel out of place. They stood awkwardly near the entrance, unsure where to go. Tyler checked his phone. 9:55 a.m. May I help you? A security guard approached them with a questioning look. We're supposed to meet someone at 10 o'clock, Tyler explained. Our grandmother, Madeline Winters, sent us. The guard's expression changed immediately. Ms. Winters? Of course. Please follow me. He led them across the lobby to a desk where a man in his 50s sat reviewing documents. The nameplate on his desk read, Edward Bennett, Branch Manager. Mr. Bennett, the guard said, these are Madeline Winters' grandchildren. Mr. Bennett stood up quickly, his face breaking into a warm smile. Right on time. Madeline said you would, be. He extended his hand to each of them. I'm Edward Bennett. I've been looking forward to meeting you three. You know our grandmother? Zoe asked, surprised by his friendly manner. Indeed I do. Madeline Winters is one of our most valued clients. He glanced at his watch. 10 o'clock exactly. Perfect. Please, follow me. He led them down a hallway to a private room. Inside was a polished conference table with 3 safety deposit boxes placed in the center. Please, have a seat, Mr. Bennett said. Your grandmother has arranged something quite special today. The siblings sat down, exchanging confused glances. I believe you each have a key? Mr. Bennett asked. They nodded, pulling out their brass keys. Excellent. Each key opens one of these boxes. He gestured to the metal containers. Tyler, yours is the blue one. Zoe, the green. Lucas, the yellow. How did you know which of us is which? Lucas asked. Mr. Bennett smiled. Your grandmother described you perfectly. He stepped back. Go ahead. Open them. With trembling fingers, Tyler inserted his key into the blue box. It turned smoothly. Inside was a thick folder with his name on it. He opened it to find bank statements, documents, and a personal letter from his grandmother. His eyes widened as he scanned the first page. This can't be right, he whispered. Beside him, Zoe gasped as she opened her green box. Oh my God, she said, pulling out a brochure for the Richmond Art Academy, the most prestigious art school in the state. Attached was a certificate confirming a full scholarship in her name. Lucas stared in disbelief at the contents of his yellow box. Ownership papers for state-of-the-art computer equipment and enrollment confirmation for a summer coding program at Tech Valley Institute. I don't understand, Tyler said, looking up at Mr. Bennett. These bank statements show an education fund in my name, with enough money for medical school. How is this possible? Mr. Bennett sat down across from them. Your grandmother began setting aside money for each of you the day you were born. She's been adding to these accounts every month for years. But our grandmother is... Zoe hesitated, embarrassed to say the word poor in front of this man who clearly respected Madeline. Your grandmother, Mr. Bennett said gently, is an extraordinary woman who made choices most people wouldn't understand. He pressed a button on the conference table, and a screen descended from the ceiling. Madeline asked me to show you something else today. This is just the beginning of what she wanted you to see. The screen flickered to life. A video began to play, and their grandmother's face appeared. She was sitting in what looked like this very room, her eyes bright and focused directly on the camera. My dearest Tyler, Zoe, and Lucas, she began, by now you've opened your boxes and are probably feeling confused. I know you think I'm just a poor old woman living in an outdated house. You've been embarrassed by my simple ways. The truth is, I chose to live simply. The siblings sat frozen, their grandmother's voice filling the room. What you see in those boxes represents just a small fraction of what I've been saving for. There's so much more I need to show you about who I really am and why I've lived the way I have all these years. Mr. Bennett watched as the grandchildren leaned forward, their faces a mixture of shock, confusion, and growing curiosity. When we're finished here, he said, there's somewhere else your grandmother wants me to take you. Somewhere that will help you understand everything. On the screen, Madeline smiled as if she could see their bewildered expressions. It's time you learned about the other side of my life, she continued. The side I've kept hidden, even from my own family. Are you ready? The siblings exchanged glances, their earlier embarrassment about their poor grandmother now replaced by a sense of wonder. and the growing realization that they had never really known Madeline Winters at all. The video of Madeline continued as her grandchildren watched in stunned silence. "I didn't grow up with money," Madeline's recorded image explained. "My parents worked hard just to keep food on the table. When I was 18, I got a job as a secretary at an investment firm. The men there didn't think much of me at first, just a girl who brought them coffee and typed their letters." The screen changed to show a black and white photograph of a young Madeline sitting at a desk, her hair styled in the fashion of the 1960s. "But I listened and I learned. Every night, I studied investment books from the library. The firm had clients who wanted to invest small amounts of money, but the brokers only cared about wealthy clients. So my boss let me handle the small accounts that nobody else wanted." The video showed newspaper clippings with headlines: "Local, Woman Breaks Barriers in Financial World," and "Winters Investment Strategy Pays Off for Small Clients." Tyler, Zoe, and Lucas leaned forward, barely breathing. "Those small accounts grew," Madeline continued. "Soon, people were asking for me specifically. By the time I was 30, I had started my own investment firm focusing on helping ordinary people build wealth gradually. Your grandfather and I believed that money shouldn't just benefit the wealthy." Photos appeared of a younger Madeline in business attire, shaking hands with important-looking people. There she was, cutting a ribbon at an office opening. There she was receiving an award. "When your grandfather died 25 years ago, I made a decision. I had enough money to live comfortably for the rest of my life. But what was the point of having more than I needed? That's when I began my real life's work." The screen changed to show Madeline standing in front of a rundown building with a "for sale" sign. "I could have moved to a bigger house or bought fancy things," she said. "Instead, I chose to stay in our simple home and put my money where it would truly matter." Mr. Bennett paused the video. "Your grandmother wanted me to take you somewhere before you see the rest," he explained. "Are you ready to go?" The siblings nodded, still processing what they'd seen. Mr. Bennett led them to his car in the bank's private parking lot. As they drove across town, the buildings became less familiar. They entered a neighborhood none of them had visited before. "Your grandmother grew up in this area," Mr. Bennett explained. "It was struggling when she was a child, and it was struggling 30 years ago when she decided to change things." He turned onto a tree-lined street and slowed to a stop. Before them stood a beautiful building with well-kept grounds. A sign over the entrance read, "Winters Community Center." "What is this place?" Tyler asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "This," Mr. Bennett said, "is where the rest of your grandmother's story unfolds." Inside, the building buzzed with activity. Children played in a colorful reading corner. Teenagers huddled around computers in a modern lab. Adults sat in classrooms with instructors teaching various skills. "Miss Eliza," Mr. Bennett called to an elderly woman helping a child with a book. "They're here." The woman looked up, her face breaking into a smile. She walked over quickly despite her cane. "Oh, my stars," she said, looking at each of them carefully. "You must be Maddie's grandchildren. I've heard so much about you." "You know our grandmother?" Zoe asked. "Know her?" Eliza laughed. "Honey, your grandmother saved my life 40 years ago when she helped me escape an abusive marriage and get back on my feet. This center was just getting started then." More people approached, each with stories about Madeline. A gray-haired doctor who received her first scholarship from Ms. Winters's fund. A businessman whose family had food on their table because of Madeline's help during hard times. A teacher who had been a troubled teen until Ms. Maddie's mentoring program. The siblings stood in shocked silence as person after person shared how their lives had been transformed by the woman they had dismissively called Penny Pincher Maddie. Your grandmother, Mr. Bennet explained quietly, has been secretly funding this community center for 3 decades. Every penny she saved by living simply went here, or into trust funds for people in need, or into your educational accounts. But she never said anything, Lucas whispered. Why didn't she tell us? That, said Mr. Bennet, removing an envelope from his pocket, is explained in this final message she left for you. With shaking hands, Tyler accepted the envelope from Mr. Bennet. Unlike the colored envelopes from yesterday, this one was cream-colored with all 3 of their names written. In Madeline's careful handwriting, should I read it aloud? Tyler asked, looking at his siblings. Zoe and Lucas nodded, moving closer to him. Tyler opened the envelope and unfolded the letter inside. He cleared his throat and began to read. My beloved grandchildren, if you're reading this, you've discovered my secret. For years, you've seen only what I wanted you to see. An old woman in a weathered house, pinching pennies, and living as if I had barely enough to get by. The truth is that I chose this life. Every time I collected rainwater instead of running the tap, every time I grew vegetables instead of buying them, every time I mended a dress instead of purchasing a new one, I was making a choice. Those small savings added up over decades, and that money went to work in ways that matter. The real treasure in life isn't what you keep, it's what you give away. I lived simply by choice, not necessity. Every penny I saved from living without luxury went toward helping others and securing your futures. I didn't tell you because I wanted you to learn the most important lesson I could teach. A person's worth isn't measured by their possessions. True wealth comes from how many lives you touch. The deed to this community center is now in your names. My final gift is the opportunity to continue this legacy. Tyler's voice broke as he read the final lines. All my love, Grandma. For a moment, no one spoke. The sounds of the busy community center continued around them. Children laughing, teachers instructing, lives being changed. The center helps over 400 families every month, Mr. Bennet said softly. Your grandmother established an endowment that will keep it running for many years, but she hoped you 3 would take an interest in its future. I don't understand, Zoe whispered. If she had all this money, why did she live in that old house? Why did she wear the same clothes year after year? An elderly man who had been listening nearby stepped forward. Because she knew what really mattered, he said. I'm Dr. Rivera. 40 years ago, I was a high school dropout with no future. Your grandmother paid for my education. Now I volunteer, here as a physician 3 days a week. She could have lived in a mansion, Lucas said, still trying to process everything. She said that would have been wasteful, Dr. Rivera explained. She told me once, every dollar spent on luxury is a dollar that could change someone's life. A middle-aged woman approached with tears in her eyes. Your grandmother funded my shelter for abused women. 20 years later, we've helped over 3,000 women and children start new lives. All around them, people shared stories about Madeline Winters, not the frugal old woman the siblings thought they knew, but a quiet force of nature who had transformed countless lives through decades of purposeful generosity. She never wanted recognition, Mr. Bennet explained. She believed that good works should speak for themselves. Tyler looked down at the documents in his hands, the medical school fund, Zoe's art school scholarship, Lucas's technology program. Their grandmother had seen their dreams and quietly made them possible, all while they mocked her simple lifestyle. I called her Penny Pincher Maddie, Lucas whispered, tears streaming down his face. I was embarrassed by her. Zoe put her arm around her younger brother. We all were. We didn't understand. But now we do, Tyler said firmly. And we can make it right by continuing what she started. Mr. Bennett smiled. Your grandmother thought you might say that. She left you each a key to her house, too. Inside, you'll find journals detailing 50 years of her work. She hoped you might want to learn from them. As they prepared to leave, the siblings took one last look around the community center. Children reading books, teenagers learning job skills, adults getting the second chances they desperately needed, seniors finding purpose through service. This was their grandmother's true home. Not the weathered house on Maple Street, but this, living, breathing testament to a life well lived. In the car, Lucas held his grandmother's letter carefully. Do you think she knew she was rich? He asked suddenly. I mean, really rich? Mr. Bennett, who was driving them back to the bank, smiled in the rearview mirror. She once told me, I'm the wealthiest woman in the world because I've found the EG secret to true abundance. As they turned onto Maple Street and approached the small wooden house they had once been ashamed of, the siblings saw it with new eyes. It wasn't a symbol of poverty. It was a monument to purpose. The poor grandmother they had pitied had been wealthy beyond measure, not in the dollars she kept, but in the lives forever transformed by her selfless love. And now, that extraordinary legacy was theirs to continue. That was the end of this story. Thank you so much for listening. Where are you tuning in from today? I'd love to know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this heartwarming tale about the true meaning of wealth and generosity, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We share stories like this every week that inspire and touch the heart. Don't forget to share this video with your friends and family. Spreading kindness and awareness is what makes our community so special. Sometimes the most valuable lessons come from the most unexpected places, just like Madeline's grandchildren discovered. Until next time, remember that true wealth isn't measured by what we keep, but by the lives we touch along the way.